We are live, wrapping up the Sweet 16 games today. I am joined with special guest Ryan Cassidy of Road to the Garden and the oh man, I'm blanking. Bad intro. Road to the Garden, and then what's the other? The Big East
Big East
Barstool.
Following.
There it is. My bad on that intro.
No,
Um, but have had the pleasure of interacting with him on Twitter over the past couple months. Glad we're able to get him on. He's a Big East guy. They have had some success over there in the Big East this year, unlike the Big Ten. So we're just like normal, just going to talk through each of the games. Not as good of a slate as what yesterday's was, but it's a hard day. It's a hard slate to follow up yesterday's and what was one of the best, just period, right?
yeah.
But
sure.
what before we get into the games, what have kind of been your thoughts overall on the tourney and just in general?
Well, I think the first thing, and it stands out, is that there's no number one seeds left.
Yeah.
It's hardly a hot take, but we've talked all year about, is there more parity this year because of the transfer portal and the COVID year? Is that being overplayed? I mean, in the tourney right now, it seems to be kind of bearing out that there's a lot of parity.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's where I was kind of saying yesterday is like college basketball is in a good spot. It really is. Like this is the most competitive. Truly, anybody could win. All the one seeds are out at various points, and we don't have to dive into some of them more than others. But two of them go down today. Bama was the clear favorite for the tourney, and we'll jump into that in a sec. Like Princeton is a 15 seed that looked good. Like, and I know they lost. They ended up losing to Creighton. And maybe this, I don't know if this was just me. Maybe it's just like because there's been some more big C's, but Princeton did not feel like a Cinderella team to me. They felt like just a good team that just deserved to win. And maybe that's where we'll start. We can start with the Princeton Creighton game. Creighton wins 86-75 over Princeton. Back and forth first half, and then in the second half, Creighton kind of just takes over. Unreal shooting night from just in general, which is who Creighton is. But Shireman goes for, what does he go for? 21 on 8 of 11 shooting, 5 out of 7 overall. This was a team that we saw early in the year had, they got up to number 7, I think it was, in the AP poll. They had the slump with some illnesses and things like that, but when they're starting fives on, it's you can put it with the best in the country. And as somebody that's followed them, like, what are your thoughts of the game and then just them in general this year?
So it's interesting because you kind of mentioned like this is who they are as a shooting team. This is who they wanted to be, but this isn't who they've been all season. They've been, not one of the best shooting teams in the Big East. And, Baylor Shireman's numbers are way down from where he was at SDSU in terms of shooting. Pretty much all of the guys are down, especially compared to the non-conference when they're so hot. So what they've done in the Big East in the back half of the season, which got them, a 3 seed in the Big East tournament, was play tremendous defense. They're the best defensive team in the Big East. But that's not what they did tonight. They just shot the lights out. And so when they do that and then you throw in that defensive aspect, it's a really dangerous team.
Yeah, for sure. And, the Princeton got back into it a bit with that 1-3-1, at least like mix it up. But the shot making from Creighton, and like when I look at the numbers, it isn't as crazy as I thought. It's 9-24 from 3, and I can pull them up here real quick for us. But it just felt like they just hit all the shots that they needed to. And, that's a team that has that capability. We have the stats pulled up here. It's Creighton doesn't, they haven't, they play 6 guys really. I don't know if that's been that way for most of the year, but not a super deep team, but there's 5-6 is legit. 4 guys in double figures, 22, 19, 10, and 21 for Kalkbrenner, Alexander, Kluma, and Shireman. Ebuma, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's good for Princeton. He was really good. I was really impressed with watching him. Puts up 24, 6, and 9. He's been good all tournament. And as we go back to Princeton for the first 2 games, like I kind of said that it really just hasn't felt like a lucky, like this is just a random upset to me. Like it's really felt like the Arizona game, that second half, they controlled that game. The Missouri game, they controlled that. This first half, they didn't control it, I would say, but they were at least there. And then the second half, it slipped away. But they had some dudes. Like I was thoroughly impressed with them. I'm not going to lie and say that I watched any Ivy League ball this year, but watching these 3 games, I don't know why they were a 15 seed. Obviously, something happened in the regular season or whatever. But they impressed me. I don't know if you had any thoughts on them.
No, I agree with you. It makes you wonder what kind of skill is going on in the Ivy League where
For
this
real.
team isn't getting talked about because these were legitimate skilled players. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I can't say his name either, but
Abuman,
yeah, I
something
hate to
like that.
mess it up because he lit him
He's
up, and
good.
he
Yeah.
took Kalkbrenner a couple of times in ISO, and Kalkbrenner's back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of shocking. I actually lost a bet because I took the under on him, assuming that Kalkbrenner would be able to shut him down, but he really couldn't. So if it wasn't for the offensive explosion for Creighton, Princeton very easily could have won this game.
Yeah. I mean, you look, they're 9 of 21 from 3. Let's see, what were the only turned it over 5 times. As you look, like, I don't like statistically, it's not like Creighton like dominated anywhere. They won the free throw battle. And then I guess, and then they won the rebounding battle, and that's the big one right there. And with Kalkbrenner, I know he himself isn't like an insane rebounder, but as a team, it just seems like Creighton's been a pretty solid rebounder, at least defensively. I know they don't attack the glass too much on offense, but this is a team that's built more on their defense, like you said. And I know I mentioned like you were right and correct to me that this is the team that they want to be. This team that can get out, can shoot. But then they have this defensive anchor in Kalkbrenner, like you said, and it just feels like they haven't had that, and that's been the bigger difference for why they've been able to go on a run this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg McDermott talks about he had to change his entire defensive scheme. He never ran defenses like this, but when he got a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner, he's completely focused the entire defense around having the guards pressure, play up, don't allow shots. And then if they drive by you, well, you got 7'3" Kalkbrenner sitting at the rim. So it's a team that their identity is very much defensive, and that defensive identity is all centered around Ryan Kalkbrenner and what he does.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll jump to we can jump to Alabama, San Diego State, and then we'll kind of preview the next game. San Diego State pulls off probably the biggest upset of the day, at least. I would say that's bigger upset than Miami over Houston, knocking off Alabama 71-64. This was a game that, aside from there was like a 5 to 7 minute stretch in the second half that Alabama looked like they were dominant.
Yeah.
Aside from that, San Diego State, it was played San Diego State style for the 33 to 35 minutes for the rest of the game. And they were able to muck it up enough. And then they finally had a stretch down the end where they just hit jumpers, because that was the issue, right? And I think, I don't know if you follow Stats by Will. He's a Tennessee guy. But he tweeted out like, San Diego State's doing a great job of putting this game in the mud. The only problem is that they themselves are also in the mud. And that was very, very true in that first half. Just super low scoring, very, very physical. Brandon Miller went 3 of 19. If you would obviously take that any day. First year San Diego State. Trammell comes in, hits some big ones, ends with 21. Just a really impressive win to me overall. Like, I thought San Diego State would give Bama trouble. But when Bama went on that bit of a run in the second half, I was like, okay, this has been Bama's MO, at least in the recents of, we're not going to start great. Maryland hung with them for 15 minutes. San Diego State was like, okay, they hung with them for 20-25, and now Alabama's going to just flex their muscle and go on the run and win. And San Diego State bounced back, and it really impressed me. And this is a team that they're very much built. Just, we are going to play defense. We are going to be physical, get into you, and just hopefully muck the game up enough. I don't know if you were able to watch, were you able to watch this one a bunch too?
Yeah, not as much. Obviously wasn't as locked in as the Big East games, but yeah, what it kind of reminded me of is some shades of St. Peter's, obviously with better talent, but the way they do line changes, the way that they really rely on their depth, the way that they're really physical. And then Mensa and Casey and Defo, like the shot blocker at the back of that defense.
I buy that. Bringing up some scars there, but I do agree with that. Like, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, for sure, a team that's just has good length, has good physicality, can protect the rim, really relies on defense. I like it. And maybe we can just kind of lump this in with previewing for Creighton. Like, where do you see that matchup going for Creighton San Diego State?
Man, that would be a dogfight. Like, and such different styles of defense, where Creighton's not really a really physical much on their physicality and strength. Creighton It's the same as I don't say that name here. Uh, sorry, I'm not trying to bring up old wounds, but
we're getting used to it at this point over here.
it's probably the same story for Creighton. Like they got to hit shots. If they're
Mhm.
shooting well, you stretch out that defense, you can
Yeah.
attack. Now you're cooking. But if you have a cold shooting night, that's what San Diego State lives on.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where I don't see San Diego State playing a game where they put this away or really have the capability of it. I see a scenario where Creighton, if like you said, if the offense is on, if the shooting's on, they have the capability of putting it away. Now it's against Ken Palm has them as the fourth best defense right now. Just looking at the numbers, like it's not just some easy team to score on. It's not some mid major that's just like a solid mid major. Like they're another very legit team that had a fair. I think they had a pretty good draw aside from Bama. I think that whole region's probably one of the easier ones. But you still got to win, and they beat Bama. And now they're gonna have a really tough Creighton team. I thought Creighton would make. I thought I had Creighton in the Elite Eight. I thought they were gonna go on a run. And I thought I almost had them over Bama, but now that they have San Diego State, I think I'd pick them. They're hot. They're just seem to be playing some of their best ball of the year. Maybe aside from that very early start, but even then, like this is some of Creighton's best ball, and it's the perfect time to have it.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. They got blown out in the Big East tournament semifinals by this Xavier team.
Yeah,
just because they had a bad shooting night. When they have a bad shooting night, a lot of teams in the country can beat them. But so
yeah,
not
for
high
sure.
level analysis, but if they're not making baskets,
That's what March is. It really is. It's just can you make that? It's like can you hit jumpers? Can you make baskets? Do you have guys that can just go get you one? Like and we've talked about it on this show a bunch on the previous episodes and stuff of just like the March Madness is the best because it is so unpredictable. You have Princeton, that had a realistic chance of making the Elite Eight. You have 9 seed FAU taking on Kansas State and all that. But it's the worst way to determine the true like best team, right? Because it's just a lot of it is variance. It's UConn. They looked like the best team in the country for that period in the beginning of the year. Then they look bad, and now they're looking like the best team in the country again. And it's just like they're hitting at the right time, and that's big. That's the name of the game, really, with this. And it's fun. It's really fun to watch. That's what makes it fun. So let's see. Late night tips. SDSU had easiest path to Sweet 16 outside of Xavier. I say Xavier, but I've been clowned about that, and I realize it is Xavier. I'm working on it. Trying to think.
Defensive about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Why?
I couldn't tell you. I called it Xavier before I started following.
There we go. I'm trying to think. Maybe FAU. No, probably yeah. That's probably SDSU. That was a side note. Do you have anything else on the San Diego State Creighton or either of the two matchups?
Were you surprised by Alabama's kind of lack of shooting, lack of composure, some of the turnovers at the end of the game?
Yeah, for sure. Because they're coming in, they were the most talented team in the country. I thought just up and down. You have dudes that can play. Quinterly's has shown he can make plays at this level. Brandon Miller's, purely if we're talking purely on court stuff, like he's shown he's one of the best in the country, arguably the best in the country. When you take into account what you need to win in March. Yeah, no, it definitely surprised me. I think it's a testament to San Diego State of just they're able just to muck it up. They're able to get I don't know if under their skin's the right word, but just able to force them to do things that they weren't. Alabama had 14 turnovers as I look. San Diego State had 12, and that's not. Alabama will turn it over some, but in a game like that is interesting to see, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah, so. I mean, you look like you could see some experience difference to me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, San Diego State is. I'll look it up for KenPom. San Diego State's 21st in D1 experience in the country, and that makes sense too, right? You need experience come March. We can jump to. You want to do Houston, Miami, or Xavier, Texas first?
Your pick.
Let's go Miami, Houston, and then we'll jump to the other. Miami wins 89-75 over Houston. A game that Miami just kind of flexed that, like, hey, we have the best guards, or if they don't have the best guard group it left, then they have like the second best. Shoot, what did they shoot? 11 to 25 from three. Nigel Pack 7 to 10 from three, 26 points, just lights out. He had a few really deep ones. Wong contributes 20. Jordan Miller's looked really good for them had 13. Omier 12 and 13. This is just a team that their defense isn't great. I don't think it was even great today, but when they hit shots like this, like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about experienced guard play in March, and that's what wins. That's what goes deep into these runs, Final Fours, NCAA championships. You put Isaiah Wong or Nigel Pack onto a team together. I mean, talk about two guys who can score from anywhere on the court, and you just stay out of their way and let them score.
Yeah, that's Nigel Pack was very, very close to coming home to Purdue. He is an indie guy, but goes to Miami, and it's worked out well for him. I know they had a little bit of a slow start, and the ACC wasn't the best this year, but it's a team that's tough to beat, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun matchup between Miami and Texas. But Miami has all the pieces. They have the elite guards. They have good wings in Miller and Poplar. I like Omier. Even though he's maybe a little undersized per se height wise, but he battles down low. 13 boards today. Houston just couldn't. It didn't seem like Houston was ever comfortable. They were definitely playing at Miami's tempo, and I think that's kind of something that's been shown too. You saw it with San Diego State, Alabama. Is like when you have two teams that are pretty opposite in the styles that they want to play, it is super, super important to be able to control if you want to win, right? Like Miami, I felt like controlled the tempo for a large chunk of the game. They end up winning. San Diego State, I thought, controlled the tempo for a large chunk. They ended up winning. And then down the stretch was interesting for Houston because they were able to cut it to like 9 or 11. And then it just felt like they didn't try with like 4 minutes left. It was weird. I don't know if you thought that too. Like
I
were
had
just like trapping.
So I'm not sure.
They were like they were doing like it was like a 3/4 court trap type thing, but then like if they got past the initial trap, they just like gave up baskets really easily. It was interesting. It felt like they had just given up. I think Sasser's, that would be his. I mean, he could come back. I guess he'll have the COVID year, but probably his last game for Houston. Jarris Walker was probably going pro, or at least potential to. And they move to the Big 12 next year, if I remember correctly. So
yes, you do.
It'll be interesting as they have to go up against, I don't want like a very, very tough conference in the Big 12, one of the toughest in the country. And one of those teams in the Big 12 is Texas, and they knocked off Xavier 83-71. I didn't watch the last few minutes. Xavier cut it to 12 or a 12-point deficit down the stretch somehow. This was another game. I kind of was thinking this might happen. I just thought Texas was going to roll. I just was never fully bought into Xavier, and I know that they've been good this year. But Texas is another team that's they've looked super, super good. Pretty much just dominated today, got what they wanted. It felt like when they wanted. Allen had a great first half. Walker is declaring for the draft per Rothstein. So there we go. Houston's probably going to look completely different next year. Bishop goes for 18, Rice goes for 16, Hunter goes for 19, Carr goes for 18. Like they just have dudes, and Kansas State they have dudes, but Texas has dudes, and they legitimately have 5, 6 guys that could go for double figures any night. They had 5 today, and that's with Disu getting hurt, and that'll be an interesting storyline going forward. I don't know. I wasn't as tuned into this game, so I don't know did they give any updates that you know of?
They just said he was out for the rest of the game, and it was the same heel injury, I believe, to the foot.
Okay. So that'll be a big thing, because if they lose him, then I feel less confident about them against Miami if he isn't ready to go, because I think he is a big part just as that, elite athletic kind of wing center-ish area, being able just to make plays, right? And against Penn State, he had an unreal game, and that was the reason that they beat Penn State. If Disu didn't play like how he did, we're probably talking about Penn State, right? Or we're talking about Xavier Penn State right now. But what maybe before the game, like what did you think of Xavier's season as a whole as they kind of wrapped up their season?
Um, Xavier had a tremendous season. I mean, they had one of the best seasons of anybody in the conference, probably the second best season. And especially with the brand new head coach, Sean Miller, the way that
Mm,
the season ended last year, where they were really in line to make the NCAA tournament, and then a collapse in
yeah.
February ended up where they're one of the last teams out. And they really only brought in one transfer, so it's pretty much was all the same players with the new coach, and what were they able to do? And they really hit the ground rolling. Um, so I think coming into this game, like we knew it was going to be a tough game, but I didn't see them getting rolled like this. So
Mm.
it's a little disappointing.
Yeah. When did you was there a point where you were just like, yeah, this is Texas's night?
So I didn't realize how strong Texas was defensively. And I thought that they did just a fantastic job in terms of pressuring the ball and Xavier, really taking Xavier out of some of their sets, whereas, especially compared to what Xavier did against Pittsburgh last weekend. Xavier ran like all of their most basic sets, and they got really easy baskets out of it. Versus tonight against Texas, you were watching them try to run the same sets. Texas is switching screens. Texas is, bumping them off their spots. And Xavier's not the most physical team. It's a more of a skilled team. And I think that really just threw them way off. And they were behind an 8 ball in the first 10 minutes.
Yep, 100%. This is just a game that Texas was able to kind of just impose their physicality, their athleticism, like you said, and I think that came true. They have the dudes that can make shots, and when you have when you're able to do that and make shots, it's just tough to overcome.
Yeah, like some
Do
of
you
those
think
shots
that?
Go ahead.
What? No, you go.
I was going to say some of those shots that Marcus Carr hit, like in the first few minutes, like ridiculous, right?
Yep.
So you pretty much have to play a perfect game against Texas if they're going to shoot the ball like that.
Oh,
and Xavier missed some layups and some bunnies that they needed to have, and they just didn't have they needed to play almost perfect, and they just didn't have that tonight.
Yeah, Texas went 7 of 12 from three, only 9 turnovers compared to 12 for Xavier. Xavier shot 7 of 17 from three, but struggled a bit from two, like you said, and just it felt like just didn't quite get what they needed. Texas just looked like the better team, and I don't think that's as much a knock on Xavier. It's just a testament to where Texas is at. Now Texas will play Miami in the Elite Eight. Like, do you think that's a game that Texas is able to impose their physicality again, and just because obviously I think Miami probably has better guards, but similar makeups of Miami and Xavier of like more offensive heavy, skill based. Like, do you think Texas is going to just be able to impose their will again, or you think it'll be close?
Obviously, like you mentioned, a lot of it will have to do with whether Disu is playing in the game. But either way, man, that Texas team is deep, talented, physical, athletic. I mean, how many guys are they bringing off the bench who could start at most P6 schools? So it's what I saw, how I saw them play today. It's really hard to bet against them.
Yeah, I agree. And Miami's look good too. That one should be fun. It's gonna be another style thing, I think. If Miami can turn it into a high scoring affair, a like true shot making, like just drill jumpers, then they have a chance. If they don't do that, then I think this is Texas. And that can kind of transition to our last thing before we wrap up here of who we got in the Final Four. And we've kind of on the show, we've kind of done it along the way. It's changed a bunch. Before I guess the picks, what Final Four game are you most excited for? So there's Kansas State, Michigan State, or not Michigan State, Kansas State, FAU. I think I know your answer, and it's probably the right answer of Gonzaga versus UConn. And then there's Texas, Miami, and then San Diego State versus Creighton.
Yeah, give me that UConn Gonzaga game.
That's gonna be nuts.
That should be a really fun one.
Yeah, no, I agree. And who do you have in that? And maybe a little reason why.
Give me the Huskies for their physicality. Not sure that Gonzaga is playing that level of physicality in the WCC. Obviously, they play a really strong non-con, but it's been a few months since that.
Yeah.
And UConn dominates down low in terms of physicality, bringing in the two centers back to back. So I think that if they can, as long as Gonzaga doesn't shoot the lights out, UConn can out-rebound, out-defend, and make it kind of a slugfest.
And see, I think that's all fair points. And we talked about it on the show yesterday. I don't know if you've ever interacted with my co-host Aiden. But he's a he's a high school coach in that he knows his stuff, and he's like, yeah, I like UConn from the schematics, like how they match up in that. And then I'm over here just like, give me Gonzaga based purely on vibes. Just like Timmy's just gonna do something. I don't usually I do like to get in depth of the X's and O's and stuff, but it's just I can't get over this is just Timmy's year type thing, and I truly do think that they just, even if they aren't the best team, I think they just somehow do it, and I don't know how. It might be Timmy dropping 45 somehow, or maybe Strother just hits 5 straight logo shots somehow, which is like at the end of the game, which was a wild shot. Still, I still don't. When that shot went up, I still was just like, oh my gosh, that was not a. But
a Big East throwback on that shot.
Yeah,
the
Villanova shot. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was a wild play. Yeah, I mean, I love Drew Timme. If he wasn't playing against UConn, I'm always rooting for him. But
yeah, for sure.
Watch for him if he gets hot. If he gets started, Hurley should go to Klingon pretty early since he's more of a defensive big. So he might neutralize him that way.
Okay, that'll be good to watch out for. We'll jump over to the other one that will be tomorrow, which is FAU versus Kansas State, and I'm just excited to watch Noel play basketball again. I'm very excited to watch that following the 20.19 assist. From what I heard today, he said his ankle was about 90%. He's getting a bunch of treatments, so I assume he'll be full go. But FAU's legit. I didn't watch a ton of them this year, but watching them through the tournament, like they're another team, like kind of like San Diego State. They're not a mid-major that's just like kind of luckily getting their way there. Although I know they got a good draw with how the games worked, but FAU is legit, and I think they can give Kansas State a run. I lean Kansas State just purely because I think they have the 2 best players in Noel and Johnson, and I think at some point that firepower does enough. But man, FAU is good too. Like this is going to be a really, really good game.
Yeah, I agree. FAU is super solid, but I'm not picking against Noel right now. FAU, I just don't know if they have the level of talent they'll need to match up against K-State.
Yeah, that's where it should be another really good game. And there is the possibility of a Miami Kansas State finals, which would be fun, which would be Nigel Pack against his old team, plus Noel, and that would be fun. I guess we already kind of gave our picks. I'm taking Texas over Miami, and then did we give a pick for Creighton San Diego State? I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
You had Texas over Miami, right?
Yeah, I got Texas.
And then I would go probably. I'm going to go Creighton over San Diego State. I almost put them in my Final Four to start, like before the bracket or before the tourney started. I believe in this team. I like that they have capability of shooting it really, really well, but it's not like they have to shoot really, really well. Like they have other ways to win, and I think that's going to be big for them.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick against my Blue Jays, but if San Diego State plays defense like they did tonight, I mean, that's going to be a hell of a game. Like, because they can take anybody out of their rhythm if they play defense like they did tonight.
So that should be another good game. We have there's just so many good games. Somebody was asking like, who is your team? Like, I know you're a big East guy, but do you have a team you root for?
Originally was a UConn fan before we started all this.
Okay. Do you still have are you still like a UConn fan, or are you a Big East fan?
You fall in love with different players and, watching different coaching styles and all that kind of stuff. So it really depends on the year.
That's fair. If it's UConn Creighton in the championship, who would you take?
Oh, that's a great question. They split the home and home. They didn't play in the Big East tournament. Man, that would give me. That'd be good. That'd be a good matchup for you. UConn's playing that right now.
Yeah,
championship good.
Yeah, I think they're the betting favorites now. After all the odds update and stuff, KenPom has them back at the number 1 team, barely over Houston. They're legit. I would have picked them if they had literally any other matchup. I would pick them. And this is like, I admit it. I'm picking Timmy based purely on vibes, and if that's wrong, then that's fine with me. But we're kind of wrapping it up here. I think have 2 more really good games tomorrow. If you have any other thoughts, games today, Big East, Final Four, whatever you want.
Great time to be a college basketball fan. Ratings are up. Everything's going well. Big East is hot. They just added Rick Pitino to their roster of coaches. You know, Big Ten's hot. Purdue's been fantastic. So just having a lot of fun. Glad to see the game so healthy, and
Yeah.
excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. It's in a really, really good spot. It's looking like, I think there's still probably some little kinks to figure out with the NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff. But in general, my take especially watching this tournament, it's just like, it's just going to make college basketball even better. Like, you're going to have guys stay longer. You're going to have guys be put in better spots, at least for the most part. It's going to be good. Like, you have Kansas State, who's built basically on transfers. You don't have to do it that way, as they brought up with Michigan State. Although, as I said yesterday, Michigan State does have a few, like, Walker and Hauser both transferred in 2 years ago, whatever. But really, really fun time to be college basketball. Lead 8 starting tomorrow, Final 4 the following week, and then we'll have whatever is it, 5-6 months in between and get ready for it all over again.
Long off season, but you got guys like Armando Bacot announcing that they're coming back. One of the highest profile players in the entire league and the entire sport. And when guys like that are making the choice to come back because it's good for their career, well, that means it's a lot of fun to be a college basketball fan right now.
For sure. And the money's probably nice for him too, which is definitely helpful.
Not a downside.
For sure. We appreciate you coming on. Aiden, as for anybody that is watching, Aiden is in Louisville. He was actually at the Alabama. He was at both games today, the Alabama, San Diego State, and then Creighton, Princeton. So he was there. I think he's staying even for the Sunday game. But, we appreciate you coming on, Ryan. Make sure everybody that is watching, go follow him on Twitter at Ryan Cassidy CBB. Put it up here for you. Does really, really great work. If you want to, get smarter watching about basketball, tune into his stuff, does some film stuff, does some writing, just in general, somebody that I'm glad I've come in contact with through Twitter. So definitely have learned a lot. Everybody make sure to go follow him. So appreciate you coming on.
Hey, appreciate that, Joe. Seriously. And we definitely got to get you on our podcast. All right.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm due for one now. We'll do a home and home, we'll call it. And that works for me. Yeah, definitely something, whenever, off season, preseason, whatever you want. Just let me know and I'll be good.
Yeah, I got you for sure.
All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate Ryan for coming on. And we'll catch you guys in the next one tomorrow after all the Elite 8 games.